really fascinating how Bill Gates and George Soros have both. I mean, Soros passed the baton to his son. Bill Gates is now trying to be a little bit more persuasive to the Trump administration. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's quite interesting that they seem to be seeing the writing on the wall, Mike.
Well, I don't know about that. I know
they're trying to adapt, right? Like they're trying to survive. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'm very open to the idea that I'm wrong, as always.
No, I know it's. There should perhaps be a certain nod given to Bill Gates's statement that the climate change hysteria is not existential. It's still a really big problem, but it's not existential, and other problems like poverty and the like are. I mean, so we need a lot more than that from Bill Gates before we start moving him down the power rankings on this. Bill Gates pledged $200 billion to the Gates Foundation after the USAID cuts were announced. Bill Gates basically stepped in and said, okay, over the next 20 years, I will be giving $200 billion to the Gates Foundation to help offset the what appears to be a potentially long-term downturn on U.S. international aid given out through USAID and State Department grants and the like. So the Gates Foundation is stepping up to be the kind of Gates private empire version of USAID. I mean, 200 billion divided by 20 years is 10 billion a year. USAID's budget is 45 billion a year. So, that's 20% of USAID almost right there. And it's important to understand that Gates is Microsoft. Microsoft is rotates between the number one and number two biggest company on planet Earth. It recently lost its top seat to NVIDIA, which, NVIDIA, because they're just kind of a chip company, they don't have the kind of far-fangled operation that Microsoft has set up over decades. But Microsoft is a huge player in this entire field of CIA, State Department, USAID work. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, Microsoft is co-partnered with USAID and the State Department and the National Endowment for Democracy in almost all of these initiatives to stamp out right-wing populism. And a big part of this is because they get fat government contracts from these countries or from these EU resilience funds. This is playing out in Poland right now. The EU withheld funds to Poland when the PIS party was in power. The right-wing populist party that was giving NATO a bit of a headache. And they said, until they make these civil society and governance reforms, we are going to withhold, I think it was like $143 billion in EU disbursement funds to Poland. And a huge chunk of that $143 billion was earmarked for Microsoft contracts in that. Basically, if those funds could be unlocked, Microsoft makes billions of dollars. And those funds are still making its way through the disbursement funnel. And they're trying to, because part of this is Poland just elected this right-wing populist president, Karol Nawrocki. And lo and behold, the Obama Foundation has just leapt into action to work with Polish civil society institutions to stamp out threats to democracy in Poland. Well, who are the biggest sponsors of the Obama Foundation? The Gates Foundation, $100 million. The Ballmer Foundation, I think another $100 million or $50 million. Steve Ballmer, also Microsoft. Microsoft makes another, I think, $25 million foundation. This is just an ROI. They're basically spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a play that could net them billions of dollars. And you see this same phenomenon play out everywhere, where you have corporate sponsorship of regime change. And this has basically balkanized U.S. politics along which corporations support which president. That president then goes out and uses taxpayer money to do regime change to pay off their donor class buddies who then draft off of the policies that the president implements. And so this is the George Soros playbook. This is how he became a billionaire in the first place, was this donor drafter class type operation where he will fund a U.S. political movement or party, and then they will institute various initiatives. And this happened in Mongolia in the early 2000s when George Soros was sponsoring all these State Department activities, and the State Department helps one of his portfolio companies, Rio Tinto, gets the rights to the world's largest copper mine in Mongolia. So meanwhile, the Soros hedge fund is betting on the stock of Rio Tinto, while the U.S. a British mining firm, while the U.S. State Department is bending over ass backwards into a sort of Gumby-like, twister game in order to make sure a foreign country's mining firm gets the rights to a Mongolian copper mine, so that the hedge fund magnate who sponsored the U.S. politicians is happy with them and will support them in the next election cycle. But you see this everywhere. This is what's happening in Ukraine with the Ukraine reconstruction. This is what's happening with all the creditors to the World Bank whenever these countries get in trouble with the World Bank. And so you see this international creditor class as well as the equity class in on this. But this is what we're up against, but it's contorted every institution in American society.
I bet you've noticed those creepy ads that pop up on your phone and seem to know exactly where you've been, what you've bought, what you've been talking about. I know you've seen those. We've all seen those. And you've probably then asked yourself, is my phone monitoring me? Of course it is. Of course it is. We all know that. The truth is your smartphone is constantly collecting and leaking data without your knowledge or consent. Every single day, it builds a detailed profile of your life, your location, your habits, your interests, even the people with whom you communicate. That information is then funneled into an invisible marketplace. It's just put up for sale where it's tracked, analyzed, and sold to the highest bidder, which, by the way, sometimes is the government. Of course, is not just annoying, it is absolutely invasive, and it's happening all the time. But the Up phone by Unplugged is different. It's designed to protect your privacy from the ground up. No hidden trackers, no data mining, just a secure, streamlined smartphone experience that puts you back in control. I have mine right here. So whether you're texting, browsing, or using apps, the Up phone ensures your personal information stays personal. It is the phone for people who are done being watched. So if you're ready to take back your digital privacy, visit unplugged.com/Emily to get $25 off a phone case with the purchase of a phone. That's unplugged.com/Emily, because your life should be yours, not theirs. Plus, through Veterans Day, Unplugged is honoring those who serve. Veterans and active duty military get $175 off any Up phone, and they're donating $50 from each purchase to support veterans charity Valor Mission Project. Learn more and order your Up phone today at unplugged.com/Emily.